Hello, my name is Boneless, and welcome to my 685 patch analysis. In this video I'll go through the entire changelog rather quickly, and then I'll focus on the big meta changes and especially the jungling. My channel is all about jungling, so I thought it would be fitting that I focus on everything that will affect the jungling. Personally, I really like this patch, and I'll explain later why. Alright, let's get into it. Purge, this is cool. This is like a buff to Necro Book first of all, and the Warlock Golem of course. And it's also something they had to do, because Purge is now 0 cooldown, so if you could just spam Purge on everything it would be way too good. Siege creeps, well now you can sacrifice a siege creep with Lich I guess. And I guess it's the big thing here is that you can stop pushes by actually spamming stuff, spamming spells, maybe. I mean, it's like 80% magic resistance, so maybe it's not gonna make a lot of difference. I guess now in those games where you have 5 catapults hitting your racks or your throne, you can actually stun them and hex them and prevent them from doing as much damage as they could before. It's kinda cool. Ancient Thunderhide got a new ability, War Drum's Aura. 15% damage, 50% attack speed. The Black Dragons got this aura now, which is kinda cool. It's 2 armor to everybody. And it's stackable, which is really interesting. So it means it's more difficult to farm a huge ancient stack now. It seems like Leshrac been doing his best to nerf the big ancient stack the last couple of patches, which is totally fine I think. It's a buff to Lifestealer and Chen. Lifestealer can infest the ancients now, which is kinda cute, but the thing is that the ancients are just too slow to gank with. But Lifestealer can actually farm the ancients rather quickly now once it becomes level 6, which is the bigger thing I think. And Chen with the Scepter got even more auras that he can stack up now. All of these auras late game is not to be trifled with. Abaddon, Miscoil buff, Scepter buff, not really a huge deal. Aghanim Scepter is not really a thing on Abaddon. Hard to farm because you're usually a support. Maybe Miscoil can help Abaddon on the offlane? He's not the worst offlane, honestly. He can just farm with Miscoil against a dry lane. It's legit. But nah, I doubt it. I don't think this is enough to bring Abaddon back. Alchemist is buffed yet again. Not much to say, I guess he needed it. They're really trying to make this Greedle Screed work. They're really trying. AA Cold Feet cast range buff. This is cool because Cold Feet is like this spell you maybe skill a little bit in the early game and then later you don't really care about it, so buffing it like this is a step in the right direction. Got some cool synergy with Vortex, which also got a huge cast range. So now it's easier to contribute with anything except for his ulti, which is like pretty much the reason you pick AA is only because of his ulti. He's a walking ulti and nothing else. So it's nice that his other abilities are getting buffed a little bit, and yeah, like I said, it's cool that he got 3 abilities now which got a huge range, like the Cold Feet and the Vortex and the ulti. Yeah, it's alright. It's not enough to bring him back though, I don't think so. Anti-Mage Blink nerfed on lower levels? I don't know. Obviously intended to make it easier to gank him in the laning phase, but not really. Seems kinda random. The only reason Anti-Mage has been popular lately because he's a good counter to the meta, which was Storm and Leshrac. And they got nerfed now, so I don't think Anti-Mage is too strong. I think he's fine just the way he is. Bane. I really like this change. Level 1 Braid Tap is awesome. This is like 180 damage swing on level 1 for 70 mana. And you can cast this spell, 6 times on level 1? This is actually really cool. Support Bane, offlane Bane, even mid Bane is getting a lot of love right there. I mean, you can man fight people on level 1 in the mid lane. Not sure if it will be enough though. Still doesn't change the problem about Bane is that he's only single target, he can't really push anything. And mostly he needs like Blink BKB to even get his ulti off. But it's cool, I really like it. Bat Rider got some small buffs. He got really screwed when his jungle speed got nerfed a few patches ago. He can still jungle, but it is a bit slow now. People are really excited about this Aghanim Scepter, that you can outrack 2 people instead of 1 guy. I'm a bit conflicted about this. I mean, it's not that great. 400 is a pretty small range, and it's hard enough to get vision to actually just land your ulti on one guy. But the thing that's kinda good about this scepter is that Bite Rider doesn't really need anything except for Force Staff and Blink Dagger. Everything else is just luxury items, really. So maybe it's a good option, because you don't really have anything better to do with your money. So the scepter is not great, but maybe people will use it anyway after the Blink and Force Staff. Oh, and by the way, I should mention that the 100 damage per second is actually a lot of damage, plus the napalm. So even if you land your ulti on only one guy, then it's actually a big damage increase. So it's not a complete waste, even if you don't get the 2-man ulti off. Bloodseeker, the big thing here is that his level 1 blood rage is 19%. It might not seem like a big deal, but his laning stage is like all about tanking some damage, and then he's getting his HP right back when he's last hitting creeps. And that is a bit harder now. He's kinda good as a level 1 choke point jungler, not really, but kinda good, and that's also even harder now, obviously. Bounty Hunter got really hurt in this patch, I think. And it's sad because I really like to play Bounty Hunter, but it's kinda really nice also, because I like to do this high ground jungling on Tinker and Cuddle and Necrophos, and the only hero that really fucks me up when I do this, that's Bounty Hunter. So it's kinda nice that Bounty got this nerf. But let's see if Bounty Hunter is really hit as hard as I think he is. I mean, the allied team bonus gold is not really a big deal, but the vision nerf is really painful. If you're winning, then you can chase them down, and then you can still track a bunch of people, but if you're losing hard, then Bounty Hunter is really bad now. He's even more of a liability now in the games where you're behind. Brewmaster, Slide Buffs, Bristleback. When they say that the damage threshold is reduced, then I can only assume it means that the Quill Spray will trigger more often, which means it's a buff. Pretty decent buff, I would say. And another significant buff for Bristleback this patch is the fact that Crimson Guard has been reduced by like 200 gold. Centaur buffed, it's not a big buff. I think his return was still better before when they triggered right when you're hitting him. Yeah, so Centaur needs more buffs. It's a cool hero. Gen buff, I like how they buffed his normal skills rather than his jungling, because his jungling is already fast enough. He can gank, he can push, and now he's even more relevant in the late game because he can take over the Thunderhide Lizard in the late game, and like I said before, it's a lot of auras, and it should not be underestimated. Clink's minor buff, and also, yeah, sort of buff because the Helm of the Dominator is buffed, like, so no matter what you dominate, it's gonna have at least 1400 HP. So if you take over a creep and then use your Death Pact on that creep, then no matter what creeps you get, it's still alright for your ulti. But you know, then you have to go Helm of the Dominator on Clinks, and yeah, it doesn't really matter that much. Crystal Maiden slight buff again. Darkseer base intelligent nerf. I don't know if he really needed that. It means that he got a little less mana to spam Iron Shell in the laning phase. And also, when I play Darkseer, I struggle with my mana pool throughout the game, so maybe this base intelligence nerf might even be relevant later on, because you got like 4 spells and usually you want to pick up the mechanism. Yeah. Dazzle Poison Touch buff, cost less mana on later levels. It's good, he needed that. I don't think Poison Touch is as bad as everyone is saying. I want to see some max level Poison Touch. It's a fun spell. Long cast range, low cooldown. Death Prophet, Exorcism buff, Disruptor. Again, it's harder to get vision, it's like a theme in this patch. I'm not sure if this new trend about getting less vision, I think I like it before the way it was. Doom buff, yes! Awesome. Level 2 Scorched Earth is now a lot better on the offlane. It's a huge buff to Scorched Earth because the skill already did a lot of damage and now it does significantly more damage. Jungle Doom is sadly still unchanged. I mean, level 1 Scorched Earth is the same, and on level 3 you'd rather have 2 levels of Devour, so I really love the Jungle Doom. It's just too slow, and it's the same problem as all a lot of the junglers. You just can't gank until you hit level 6. And it's bad. DK is now slightly better on the mid lane, alright. Drow Ranger keeps getting buffed. For me, that's really interesting for the jungle Drow Ranger. The problem about the jungle Drow is that the level 8 timing is like... The level 6 timing, excuse me, is like 8 minutes, which is just too slow. But with all the buffs Drow Ranger's been getting, it's like more like maybe 7 minutes, level 6 or something. It's still slow, but you know, she brings the aura and stuff, and it's cool. Maybe when Drow Ranger gets some more buffs, I'm gonna remake the Drow Ranger jungle guy. Maybe then the Drow Ranger jungle could be a thing. I don't think it's gonna be a thing, but I really want it to be a thing. Drow Ranger jungle is so cool. Shaker needed a nerf. This is a nerf, but Fissure doesn't really kill with the damage. Fissure kills with the block. And I think you can still do the to the Dire Ancients in Dota Reborn. I'm not entirely sure about that actually, but Shaker is still the same hero, he's still strong. Earth Spirit is it's like a convenient luxury change, it's fine, I hate the hero. Elder Titan buff, he needs that, he's useless. Enchantress buff, the interesting thing here is that Impetus is no longer a unique attack modifier. So now Mask of Madness actually works with Impetus, but it doesn't really change anything in my opinion. But maybe a late game Skadi is now really good for the Enchantress. It's like those are the two items that I can think of where it actually matters this change. Enchantress is still the same hero, still a bit too slow in the jungle. You still want to get the Scepter as the first item before anything else. Enigma getting buffed again. Black Hole buff, Midnight Pulse cast range reduced from 0.2 to 0.1 seconds, which is a big deal actually, because now every time you cast Black Hole you can do the Midnight Pulse just before you cast the Black Hole. And I don't understand why Enigma is getting all these buffs, he's already strong as he is. He's like the fastest jungler to get to level 6 or 7, only rivaled by my Cuddle jungling. But alright, well, he's not broken, he's not first pick material, so I guess buffing him is alright. Gyrocopter. The two things I like about Gyrocopter is his killing potential in the laning phase and the fact that he can control BKB targets with his ultimate. And both of these things are kinda nerfed now, so that is a bit sad. I don't think he needed that. They could have at least nerfed him in some different way. This kinda takes out the fun of it, I think. Huskar nerf, I understand the reason for this nerf, but now I think he deserves to get buffed in some different way, honestly. Maybe in the next patch. I hope so. Invoker buff, cool. Level 1 Alacrity is the biggest deal, I think. Jakiro buff, fine. Blade Fury buff, fine. Blade Fury usually falls off later in the game, so I really like that they are buffing the damage now. I mean, before you didn't even want to max it sometimes, you didn't even want to bother, so buffing it, it's totally fine I think. Keeper of the Light. Now Cuddle's getting buffed again. And I mean, 2 years ago when I did the 5-minute mechanism on Cuddle, and now he's just getting buffed and buffed and buffed in every patch. I mean, I want people to realize how incredibly good Cuddle is in the Dire jungle especially. He can gank, he can help the mid lane with mana, he can still reach level 7 in 5 minutes just as fast as Enigma. And this buff is also quite good actually. When you use Chakra Magic on an ally hero, you reduce the cooldown of that spell, and that spell has gone up 1 second on each level. When you just gank with Cuddle and one other hero that got a stun, and then you just use the stun, you use Chakra Magic, and almost all heroes with a stun can just stun again right after the stun has run out. Because 5 seconds cooldown reduction on your stun, that's a lot. And you have Mana Leak, Illuminate to back that up of course. And the other thing that's really big here is that the level 1 Chakra Magic reduces your cooldown from 1 second to 2 seconds, which is like a big deal, because it means that you can progress through the jungle faster, because you reduce the cooldown of Illuminate. Cuddle jungling is easier now, and it's also faster now compared to when I did it. And also there's like this added benefit that when you wanna kill the mud golems with Illuminate, then this is kinda weird, because if you kill the mud golems with Illuminate, they spawn the shard golems, but the shard golems also get hit by the Illuminate, and they die from the Illuminate if the Illuminate is high enough level. So Keeper of the Light is surprisingly good against the mud golems. It makes no sense whatsoever, but this is how it works. I'm sure we're gonna see a lot more Cuddle on the pro scene. I just hope people will realize just how good this hero is, so we can see him a lot more. I will do an updated Cuddle jungling guide when I find the time and show you guys how freaking fast Cuddle is now. Conker getting buffed again. Tidebringer is even more annoying if you play him solo mid. And better cast range on X marks the spot is really good if you play him as support. Legion Commander buff. Legion Commander can jungle, yes, but it's like the same problem as Doom Bloodseeker. You can't really gank until you hit level 6, and it's just a bit too slow to justify AFK jungling. I feel like this is more of an offlane buff to Legion Commander. Base damage, overwhelming odds, cooldown, good for offlane. Leshrac along with Lina got hit pretty hard in this patch. A big nerf to Leshrac is also the Yield Scepter. The cast range of Cyclone is reduced a lot, which means you can't initiate with Yield Scepter as easily. Before you could almost initiate from the Fog of War, and now you just have to come a bit closer so people can actually see you coming and they can actually turn around and walk back if they're fast enough. So this is especially a problem on Lina, I feel. Lina really can't initiate now. It's more difficult for Lina to actually walk up to an enemy and Yield Scepter and combo them. So now Lina might need a Blink Dagger, and then she's gonna lose some damage output, and even more so than she already lost, because in this patch she also got screwed on that front. The nerf right here is mainly targeted against Leshrac's solo mid capabilities. It is a huge nerf, but I think it was needed. It's harder to hit the creeps and at the same time harass the enemy hero with the Lightning Storm, because of the jump distance has been reduced. Also, the Bloodstone got nerfed, which is also a nerf to Leshrac. But the interesting thing is that Leshrac is still a strong hero. He can still farm really quickly, and he can still use that farm to buy some items that he can really benefit from, like Octarine Core. He's still good on the mid lane, but he's not at all as good as he was before. So I'm gonna call it right now. I'm gonna make Leshrac into a jungle hero. I've already planned it out. It's really fast. I just need to find the time where I can make the guide. Lich Sacrifice no longer splits XP with the enemies. It's about time they made this change. It was so annoying before when you had to go back from the lane and then deny a creep while being outside of the enemy's XP range. And so this is good. And also I think that you can now sacrifice catapults. Lifestealer rage cooldown is reduced from 19 to 16. So like rage, BKB, rage, nobody can touch you ever. It's a lot of fun. And like I said in the beginning, you can now infest Ancients creeps, which is kinda useless, except for the fact that you can farm the Ancients really fast at level 6. So you can like infest one guy, and then you can use the HP of that one guy to kill the other guys, and then when you can come out, and then you can kill the rest. It's pretty good. I think people are gonna do this, honestly. Lina got hit by the Eel Scepter nerf. Light Strike Array does less damage, Laguna Blade less damage on the later levels. But interestingly, it doesn't say anything about Laguna Blade damage being reduced with the Scepter, so maybe Scepter is gonna be just as good as before. So if that is the case, then Scepter is even better, and with the Bloodstone nerf, maybe people is just gonna go for Scepter instead of Bloodstone. I guess the biggest thing really is the Eel Scepter nerf. Lion Finger AoE from 200 to 300, yes! Lone Druid is buffed again, a pretty big buff I would say. Can you jungle Lone Druid? Yes, you can, should you? I still don't think you should. I think the only way Lone Druid is really gonna work is either if you put him on the off lane to disrupt the enemy creep equilibrium on their safe lane, with the bear, or you can get the super fast Radiance on the safe lane, and which, by the way, Radiance got buffed, so in this patch, maybe Lone Druid is gonna be a thing. I mean, sooner or later, Lone Druid will return. They keep buffing him, so... But I don't think he should be in the jungle. Luna buff, fine. It still feels kinda wrong to get a Scepter on Luna. I don't think this is what's gonna bring her back. Lycan buffed, I don't know. I think Lycan is already good enough as he is. Lycan can jungle and he's actually quite good at it. The Necrobook buff is a buff to Lycan, but on the other hand, the Medallion buff is only half effect on Roshan now, so that's definitely a nerf to Lycan. So maybe that evens it out. Magnus Empower cooldown reduced a lot. It might not seem like a big deal, but I think in the late game, you can actually buff, 3 heroes? I think in the late game this is gonna make a big difference. Medusa Mystic Snake buff, I think this is a huge buff. It's great for laning, it's maybe even now great for jungling. I'm gonna try Medusa jungling with this high ground jungle technique at some point, and I have a feeling it's gonna be really fast, but let's see. I'm gonna make a guide when I get around to it. Mirana getting buffed. I'm Danish. Danish people love when Mirana get buffed. Morphling buff, Adaptive Strike on level 1 actually does something now. Ethereal Blade got buffed, the cooldown got reduced, so that's good for Morphling. Naga Siren level 1 Riptide was way too good, so this nerf is fine. Scepter pretty much heals everyone to full HP now. And of course the Radiance buff is huge for Naga. The Radiance now costs 350 again. And also there's buff to Manta, there's buff to Diffusal Blade, so I think carry Naga unfortunately is gonna be a thing. Nature's Prophet also getting some love, cool. You still shouldn't jungle him, and I'm still not convinced this is gonna bring him back. Necrophos, now this is interesting. First of all, the Heartstop aura no longer affects the Ancients. I'm aware that this destroys pretty much a few of my jungle videos with Necrophos. Like the Necrophos Jungle Guard part 2 and 4 are now completely useless. But I'm actually fine with this, honestly. I think it was dumb to begin with that you could just stand next to the Ancients and just kill them by doing nothing. So, rest in peace, jungling Dire Ancients with a magic stick, and rest in peace, 4-mana Midas. I guess I'm the only guy who ever gets the pleasure of making a 4-mana Midas in the jungle then. But the thing that's really exciting for me is that the Death Pulse got a huge buff on the early levels. So part 1 and 3 of my Necrophos Jungler Guide is a lot better now. Because you want 2 levels of Heartstop Aura, you want 2 levels of Sadist, and then that 1 level is actually enough of Death Pulse. So it's really cool. Night Stalker sucks in the laning phase, but now he got some more base regen, so now he's still kinda bad, but it's really good for him. It's a pretty big buff, I think. Bigger than it seems. Nyx, the Scepter is even more dumb. Vendetta duration is a huge deal actually, because now the level 6 gank is a lot easier to land, and also on level 16 you can do the Vendetta damage twice if you're patient and just wait to hit with your Vendetta until it's almost off cooldown again. And it seems like they wanna make Ogre Magi even more tanky. Alright. And Bloodlust can now be cast on towers. This is cool. This is really cool. Overlane Ogre, here we come. Omni-Knight Purification is a buff. Degen Aura is a nerf. I don't know what the reasoning is. It will be easier to run next to a target and then heal yourself and actually hit them with the damage. I think that's gonna be the big thing. Oracle is a dumb hero. Fate Seated can now be Purge. I think that is the biggest deal here. He's still a dumb hero. I don't like him. Outworld Devourer strength gain buff. Sanity's Eclipse kinda both got buffed and nerfed. I think he needed more of a buff, honestly. You never see OD these days, and he's such a cool hero. Phantom Assassin Stifling Dagger now applies your orb effect, which is really cool. Blur no longer has delay time, which is also a buff. It means that you can see the gank coming instantly, so you can blink strike to like creeps or dominated creeps really fast to avoid the gank. Phantom Lancer nerfed a little bit. I think that's okay, he deserved it. Phoenix Sunray buff, more heal, more damage. Puck Illusory Orb speed increased by 50. When you're laning Puck solo mid, it means that you are more likely to hit the creeps and the enemy hero with the same orb, which is nice. Also, it means that you are more mobile later in the game. I think we're gonna see some more Puck now, simply because we're gonna see less Leshrac, and we're gonna see less Storm, and we're gonna see less Lina. Pudge got a huge buff in my opinion. Rod damage doesn't matter that much, but the level 1 slow is 27% now instead of 20%. 7% might not seem like a huge deal, but it actually is, because it means that you can get more right clicks off when you're killing people on level 1. So if you're solo mid or if you are roaming Pudge, it means that you have a lot more killing potential now. Remember, you can now hook the catapults, and you're gonna feel really stupid when you do it. Pugna even faster. Nether ward can be placed in the trees now. It's cool. Life drain buff, all good buffs. Queen of Pain, random minor damage nerf for no reason. Razor Link now drains damage smoothly over time. It is a buff, it makes him a little bit better in the laning phase. Ricky, more HP when he's invisible. I think this is nice. I think this was needed. Getting HP while you're invisible only really makes sense if you're getting a lot of HP, because the time you're spending regening HP means that you're not last hitting creeps. So this needed a buff. I think this is fine. Sand King Caustic Finale buff. Really good if you are 1-on-1 against the melee hero. You can jungle Sand King to get a fast blink dagger. It's never really been great, but it's pretty good. You can actually do this weird kind of delayed stacking after the change to the Caustic Finale. It's really cool. It means that you can stack more camps at the same time, but it's also kinda useless. But I don't know, it's pretty cool. But the thing is, you can't really skill Caustic Finale in the jungle, because you need 2 levels of Sandstorm, and then it's gonna mean you only have level 1 stun at level 4, and I don't think you can afford that. Ganking with only 1 level in stun is really difficult. But it is cool. It's cool nonetheless. Shadow Demon poison buff, okay. Shadow Demon can actually also jungle with this delayed stacking technique, and it's cool. He can be a fast jungler, honestly. It has yet to be perfected, although I'm not sure I'm gonna be the one doing that. It's not on the top of my list, at least. Shadow Shaman, Shackle cooldown reduced and does a lot more damage on later levels. Okay, so like with 10 seconds Shackle cooldown, you can blink, ulti, Aethershock, Shackle, Hex, Shackle again, and then Aethershock again, and then he should be dead. So yeah, in the 1-on-1 scenario, it's really cool, the Shackle change. But in the real world, you'll never shackle anybody for more than 2 seconds, because either he's already dead because your teammate killed him, or you're just gonna get stunned and it's gonna be interrupted. So it's a cool change, but it kinda doesn't matter, I feel. Silencer fixed. Last word. Countdown debuff not being purgeable, alright. Skywrath Mage, concussive shot cooldown reduced by 2 on all levels. And Mystic Flare no longer splits its damage over spell immune heroes. I never knew it did that, and it's really dumb, honestly. I mean, why would you hit your ulti on somebody and then he's taking the damage, except he's not taking the damage? That makes no sense. So it's a good change. Yeah, it's a good change. Slaughter now got free face boots, and his sprint got messed around with again. I think, yeah, it's buffs overall, and I think it's fine. I like Slaughter, I want to see more Slaughter. And you will never again pick up face boots on a Slaughter. I mean, not that you ever picked up face boots, but you will never do that again. Sniper shrapnel delay reduced from 1.4 to 1.2 seconds, so that's a slight buff. Spectra, this is really interesting. I think Spectra got a lot of love in this patch. Desolate now works on non-hero units if they are alone, meaning that if then the last creeps of each jungle camp would be a lot faster to kill. Desolate works on Roshan now, I think. If that is true, then it's kind of a big deal, because that's a lot more damage you can do to Roshan. Radiance got buffed, cost less gold. Manta got buffed, cost less mana. Diffusal got buffed, is now just crazy. Spirit Breaker Great Up Bash uses pseudo-random chance. This is, I think, a nerf. But it's kind of nice, because every time I play against the Spirit Breaker, it's like he charges me, and then he bashes me 4 times, and then I'm dead. That's not gonna happen anymore. Storm got some well-deserved nerfs. It's kind of sad. I really like Storm, but I think it was necessary. Sven, base intelligence increased by 2, which is a big deal, because now he can stun twice with Stormhammer. Great Cleave is pretty much the same on the later levels, but on level 1 it is 30 now instead of 20, which makes me really curious. Is it actually strong enough that you can actually legitimately jungle Sven now? I mean, I know it was sort of good before, but now maybe it's actually legit. I'm really excited to find out. I'm gonna try this as soon as I'm done here. Techies, this is like half the reason I like this patch. Techies got nerfed. This is the first step in the direction of banning Techies from Dota altogether. That's the only thing I have to say about that. Terrorblade got reworked a lot. I have no idea how this is gonna pan out, and neither does iFrog, it seems, because he's been removed from Captain's mode. It's a little bit sad that enemies can now see which is the real Terrorblade. I don't like that. Tidehunter Gush, 1 more minus armor on all levels. You could argue that the medallion nerf is like a buff to all the minus armor heroes, because maybe the teams are now gonna need new ways to actually kill Roshan fast. I think level 1 Gush is pretty good now, so maybe you'll just pick up 1 level of Gush and just leave it on level 1. Timbersaw Whirling Death cooldown reduced is actually quite a big buff. It is gonna help his damage output. Tinker, rearm channel time reduced on level 2 and 3. This is really interesting, and this is a big buff, I think. And it's really cool that Tinker is getting such a big buff, because I just made a Tinker jungling guide, and it's rendering at the moment. It should be ready for upload tomorrow. The biggest buff here is on level 2. The level 2 rearm, it's a really big buff. It's like Chain Hex on level 2 rearm is now possible. And basically, when Tinker hits level 11, he is got a lot more killing potential now. I hope this is a step towards bringing Tinker back. Maybe my jungle guide is gonna be the other step that brings Tinker back. I really hope that would be the case. Would be so awesome. Check it out tomorrow. It is Boots of Travels in less than 6 minutes. You heard me. I'm not joking. Check it out tomorrow. Upload on Reddit. Tiny is getting a pretty big buff, and I don't know why. I think he's pretty strong as he is. The thing is that you can now get your combo off on the early levels with this intelligence buff. And yeah, well, he's more tanky. Just get a ring of protection as this guy, and you're set. Treant, Lich Seed, cheaper on the early levels. I think this is good. I think if you didn't get a kill with the Lich Seed before, then it was just too expensive. So I think this is fine. Troll, Fervor is better, especially on level 1. Maybe this is gonna help him in the jungle if you wanna jungle him. I don't know. I think it's like... he's kind of fast in the jungle, but I'm not sure if he's really fast enough. I mean, you need to justify having your carry AFK farm in the jungle, and that's I'm not sure he's fast enough to actually justify that. Better put him on the safe lane and then rotate him into the jungle later. Tuskar nerfed, thank god. Biggest nerf is the Frozen Sigil, no longer goes through spell immunity. Undying Tombstone worse on the early levels, better later on. And Aghanim Scepter Decay is now 10 strength. This is like Tinker, where you have a scepter that doesn't actually do anything about your ultimate. I think it's impossible to predict exactly how good this is. I think what they're trying to do is to make Undying better later on. But by doing so, I think they also really nerfed Tombstone on the early levels, so that's a huge nerf for his laning stage. Ursa both got nerfed and buffed. I like how the Earth Shock cooldown is reduced to 5. It means that you can more easily get off your Earth Shock twice when you're trying to kill someone. But the thing is, if this Diffusal Blade is gonna be a thing, then that is really bad news for Ursa, because to my knowledge you can still just purge the Enrage. Ursa obviously is a nice jungler because every second he's off the map after 5 minutes into the game or something like that, he could be soloing Roshan, and that's just a huge swing, and the enemy team just has to keep checking Roshan to prevent this from happening. Enrage got nerfed on the later levels, but it's still the same on level 1, which means that he can still do the really fast Roshan. Vengeful Spirit, better agility gain, base movement speed increased by 5, so it is slightly easier to walk up to a guy and swap him. Venomancer buffed, I think he needs it, he's not being played. Viper, agility, growth increased, and corrosive skin no longer pierces spell immunity. I think the nerf is bigger than the buff, because now if the enemy carry buys a BKB, he can just manfight Viper, and Viper will lose that manfight. Alright, so maybe you can get Aghanim Scepter on Viper, and then maybe you can control him through the BKB, but it's still a pretty big nerf to Viper, I think. Visage Familiar's stone form area of effect increased a little bit. I don't think it's gonna matter that much. Warlock. Golem can no longer be purged. This is great for Warlock. The golems will still fall off later in the game. The enemy will destroy them with physical damage. But it's something. Obviously it would have been way too good if you could just use all your purge charges on all the golems at the same time and then just kill everything with your Diffusal Blade, which got 0 cooldown, so I think it's a good change. Definitely. Winter's Curse only goes through BKB on one guy instead of on everybody, which is good. The spell was way too good. Maybe it still am, I don't know. Witch Doctor, Death Ward, a little more damage, but it doesn't bounce on level 3. Wraith King, now this is interesting. He got a huge increase in base damage, which means that carry Wraith King is gonna be better. 7 damage is a lot when you're last hitting creeps. Support Wraith King is, I think, pretty much the same. Jungle Wraith King, I'm pretty confident, is still bad. He doesn't jungle fast enough, that's just how it is. Aegis gives vision on the place where you died. I think that's good. I think it was so frustrating when you die with the Aegis and you didn't know what was going on. This gives you the chance to act faster when you respawn, like be it fighting or running for your life, your second life, rather. The Bloodstone. I think Bloodstone was too good, so I think this nerf is justified. You're still gonna pick Bloodstone on the heroes you really need it on, but maybe you're not gonna do it on heroes that like maybe Bloodstone material like Lina. The bottle change is interesting. They keep nerfing the bottle, and the reason is that the bottle has been way too good ever since they added the bounty runes. Crimson Guard is a lot cheaper. Like I said, maybe this will help Bristleback to see some play again. Diffusal Blade. This is a big change to Diffusal Blade. This is gonna change the item completely. This means that you can never run away from a guy with Diffusal Blade anymore. It means that when Ricky jumps you, and he's using Diffusal Blade and Cloud, then you can't just pop your Ghost Scepter, because then Ricky is just gonna Diffusal you again and kill you. This is a buff to heroes that like Diffusal Blade, like Phantom Lancer Ricky, maybe Spectra, maybe even Mirana. And I like the change to Diffusal Blade because it didn't seem like it did have a whole lot of play. How good it is, I don't know. I think it's good, honestly. Imagine how useless dust is gonna be if you have a Diffusal Blade. I mean, you can just keep purging off the dust no matter how many people is actually dusting you. If Diffusal Blade becomes really popular, then it's gonna be bad news for like Ursa, Bloodseeker, Darkseer. All these heroes which got these amazing abilities that can just be purged off. Drums got buffed a little, I guess it's fine, it doesn't see enough play. Dust cooldown reduced from 60 to 30. It's a good change, but it doesn't really help you at all if they have Diffusal Blade, I'm just saying. Mango is cheaper, this is exciting for me. I'm gonna do some more junglers with Mango, that's for sure. And I'm not even joking, it's actually really good to jungle Necrophos with a Mango, for example. And I'm sure it will be good on Leshrac too. Ethereal Blade cooldown reduced from 30 to 20. Good for Morphling. Tinker doesn't really care. Yield Scepter, huge nerf. I think I talked this to death already. Lina Leshrac are kinda sad. Guarding Greaves Mint cooldown reduced by 5. Okay. Glimmer Cape nerfed a lot. I think it's really good. I think this was too good of an item, so it just gives too much protection. It's so frustrating when you're trying to kill somebody and then he gets Glimmer Cape and then you're just, alright, we're not gonna kill him. Heart of Tarask got buffed. I think it's good, but I think it needs more buffs. People are just getting Skadi instead of Heart these days, and I don't think this is gonna change anything. Heaven's Halberd can now be disabled. That is really cool. I really like this change. The thing about Halberd is that it gets ruined by BKB. So now you can get your Halberd and then the other guy gets a BKB. And then you disassemble your Halberd and get like a Butterfly and, I don't know, freaking Silver Edge maybe. And then the other guy's gonna be sad because he spent all his money on BKB, so now he doesn't have money for an MKB and you're gonna crush him. Helm of the Dominator now sets the unit's health to a minimum of 1400. Nice for clinks, but not really. Nice for taking over random range creep for stacking ancients. And it's nice if you want to take over the little creep from the easy camp who got the speed boost aura. Helm of the Iron Will, cost reduced by 50. It means that, well, obviously Dominator is gonna be a bit cheaper. Maybe that is like the final nail in the coffin for people who likes to go Mask of Madness over Dominator on heroes like Luna or Drow Ranger. Lotus Orb, minor buffs, Manta Style. I think the mana cost is a pretty big deal on some heroes. And unfortunately, we're gonna have even more annoying Naga games, because with the cheap Radiance and the Manta cooldown reduction, it's gonna suck. We're gonna suffer. Medallion, Solar Crest, huge nerfs. They do half damage against Roshan now, and they cannot tag spell immune enemies anymore. This is a really huge nerf. I mean, I guess they had it coming, but maybe this is just too much of a nerf, honestly. It kind of bothers me that you can just counter Solar Crest completely by getting a BKB. Mjolnir, slight buff, Moonshot. This buff I like. This is like half the reason you never get a Moonshot in the late game is because you forget about the freaking item. And the other half of the reason you never get this item is because you can't be bothered to buy that freaking recipe from the base. So this change is really good. Now you don't have to buy the recipe. Now it's just go to the secret shop, buy a couple of Hyperstones, you're set. Necrobook. Really nice buff. More HP on the dudes, and you cannot purge the dudes anymore. It's good news for Lycan Beastmaster. I'm actually also gonna turn Beastmaster into a jungler. I have some pretty cool stuff planned for him. I was hoping for some more Beastmaster buffs in addition to this Necronomicon buff, but maybe in the next patch. Octarine Core fixed interaction with Guardian Greaves. Pipe of Insight Aura now works on the carrier. I have no idea why it didn't do that before. But it does now, so it's good. Phase Boots duration reduced and the phase boot speed increased. I would say this is a buff overall. It means that you got more of a surprise factor when you want to gank, or you have that getaway card when you're so you can get just out of range of some spells and then you can use your Blade Dagger, because then that's gonna be off cooldown again. And also Phase Boots got buffed because Treads got nerfed, and it's usually one or the other. Because unfortunately the Treads did get nerfed. It's slight nerf to the junglers I run who likes to rush Treads, like my Necrophos or my Drow Ranger. Quilling Blade. Chop cooldown reduced from 5 to 4. I bet all of you guys are just looking at this and you're like, alright, it doesn't matter. It matters to me. This change is my favorite change of the entire patch. Forget about the Tinker buff, forget about the Necro not being able to do Ancients anymore. It doesn't matter. This matters. This is like a huge buff to my high ground jungle technique. The biggest issue this style of jungling had was that you needed to spend all the time cutting down trees, and then you couldn't really participate in level 1 ganks, and you couldn't really contest the runes. I mean, you still really can't go to the enemy jungle and gank, but you have some more room to breathe now, so you can go for runes in addition to cutting down the trees. So it's really cool. I really like this. So honestly, this is like a big buff to my high ground jungle, like my Cuddle jungling and my Tinker jungling, my freaking Necrophos. I'm really hoping that the pros will do a lot more Cuddle jungling this patch. And maybe even some Tinker jungling as well. I really hope the pros are gonna try out my Tinker jungling. It would be so cool. Radiance buff, I talked about this already. It's great for Lone Druids, Spectra, and unfortunately Naga. Hex cooldown reduced by 5, doesn't really matter. The big thing about this item is that it got crushed a little bit by the Lotus Orb and the fact that the break mechanic got introduced. Hex doesn't remove evasion anymore, all that stuff. Town portal scrolls are even cheaper. Now it costs 75. You officially do not have an excuse for not carrying a TP scroll. Ring of Health, Void Stone, 25 gold cheaper. This is like a really small change, but it's kind of good, right? Because when you think about it, Battle Fury, Lincoln's Pipe, Vanguard, it's not that often you pick up these items. Veil of Discord is now cheaper, but it's still bad, very situational.